All right, so we're recording. I'm Jonah Lacqua. Thank you for being here tonight for Bridging the Gaps, a conversation about intergenerational relationships in the queer community with Peter DiMuro, Public Displays of Motion and the History Project. I may have already said I'm Jonah Lacqua. I'm Jonah Lacqua, Executive Director of the History Project. And we are Boston's LGBTQ community archives. It's our mission to document, preserve, and share LGBTQ history in the Boston area. And we've been working with Peter since October of 2019. It might have been earlier than that. I don't recall at this point. There's been a whole pandemic since the beginning of this project and now. But we're really excited to have you here tonight. My other plug for the History Project, Pride Month is coming. So far, the first event on our calendar is taking place on June 3rd. We've teamed up with Mass Historical Society to do a panel about LGBT periodicals that originated in the Boston area during the gay liberation movement. And I will put the link to that event in the chat so that if you are interested, you can come and learn more about some local publications that made national impact. And I think that's my whole intro for now. If you like what we do, please support us. Thank you to all of you who made donations tonight to be here as part of this event. And I will put the link in the chat to learn more about the History Project and the work that we do in the community. And with that, I turn it over to Peter.
Thank you, Joan, so much. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see faces and furling flags and all that, and even good to see just names too. So I'm going to be really brief because I know we only have Reverend Kim for a little while here. I run this thing called Public Displays of Motion, and it purposely doesn't include the word dance, even though dance is a big part of what we do. But we also do storytelling, theater, dance, site-specific work, things inside proscenium arches and all that. And I've been making dances and dance theater for about 40 some years or so. Started in Boston, left, and then came back. But I remember in my early days in Boston, one of the places I was attracted to was the Arlington Street Church. And I would go to service every now and then, and just found it a nice remedy to some of my earlier church experiences, which we won't get into. This project has several partners, Stones to Rainbows, Gay to Queer Lives, has several partners, including Arlington Street Church, Agora Cultural Partners, which is in residence at Arlington Street Church, and it's a wonderful company, women-led and promoting the work of Latinx artists. Of course, the History Project, and this was initially supported by a grant from Creative City, a grant program of New England Foundation for the Arts, supported by the Barr Foundation. And so we're very lucky to have all those folks involved, and we've also received a little funding from the Equality Fund at the Boston Foundation. And over all this time, we've been having conversations that were intergenerational by nature, but also intersectional in the fact that we had old and young and black and white and every nuance along the spectrum of LGBTQ plus that we could find both here in Boston and beyond Boston. And we've had these conversations, and tonight I'm hoping that we can show a little bit of those with you. I see some folks on the call who participated in that with us. But because of schedules, we're going to upfront that with a dialogue or start as a dialogue. And if maybe you have some thoughts or questions, you want to add them into the chat, that would be great too. But I'd love to introduce the person who needs no introduction, Kim Crawford Harvey, the lead minister at Arlington Street Church. And we just were talking that today is the 17th anniversary of 50 couples, is this right, who were married after same-sex marriage was allowed in, was that 17 years ago? Is that right? Tell me what I'm getting wrong and right there, Kim.
No, that's right. I mean, a lot of us got married on the state 17 years ago, but 50 of those couples happened to get married at Arlington Street. So
we love that, and that's so great. It's so welcoming, and we can't wait to. We're going to do our first installation of this project, like a mini installation in progress on June 19th and 20th, and we'll tell people about that in a little bit. But as we've been preparing, the team and I, we've been taking the installation that will be part of the project, and the installation is pretty neutral itself, but it's the images of, just like we see on Zoom rooms that all over the last year, that will get projected in and around the surfaces of the installation itself, and then there'll be some queer cabarets that will happen, and I can't wait to see that all come to be in a mini format in the chapel. I think we're going to be. And also in the space Chroma. But I think with you, I just wanted to, start the conversation. I know I feel comfortable at this church. I know the church has a long history of civil rights and human rights, gay rights, queer rights. And I don't know if that's why you ended up there, or, what are you the proudest of in all this work?
It's so great. It's such a great question. I am really proud to be part of a congregation that has just been on the cutting edge of progressive social change from go. I just tucked right in there. I had served for 4 years in Provincetown. My mentor had served at Arlington Street for 26 years. So it was sort of my natural next step. I was really lucky to be called. I think the only reason I was called is because I'd gone to Harvard, because they certainly weren't looking for a lesbian. They were, and they weren't looking for someone young. My kids are of color. I had no check boxes going for me, except for the big H on my forehead. They were looking for an old white guy with a beard. And they made that pretty clear. I don't know what the beard was about, but it's been thrilling to be there. And, it's interesting. I was really clear. I didn't want to just serve a gay church. I wanted a church that was bigger than our alphabet soup. I really wanted a place where everyone was welcome and where we could sort of practice being in the world, having it be queer normative, but also, just having everybody come through the doors. And that's kind of what happened. I think it took me a long time. I'll just say this. It took me a long time to really understand how much queer history lives at Arlington Street. And Joan, I know you know this, but I'll just say really quickly, like, any of you who has ever marched in Pride has come by and heard our bells ringing. That started the very first Pride parade, which Joan, you'll have to tell me. I think it was 71, but it might have been 70. Anyway, Stonewall, and then it came to Boston. So Arlington Street's been ringing its bells, and the bells brought in groups that later became organizations whose names I think you'll recognize: the Daughters of Bilitis, the Homophile Union, the Metropolitan Community Church, Dignity. These were all founded at Arlington Street Church, and the Boston Gay Men's Chorus. And finally, as we said, we had that really special, really extraordinary wedding. David Wilson, Robert Compton, 17 years and 3 days ago, the first legal same-sex marriage in the country in a church. And it continues. Right. So yeah, that's what's going on for us. It's
amazing. And, it's a long time. And I see the little squares around of us. Some of us have grayer hair than others. And some of that's when I visit the little bottle of dye, this changes too. But I know many of us have lived, over the decades. One of the things that's come up in the project Stones to Rainbows, Gay to Queer Lives, is actually in the title. And I started out in a time, a kid from the Midwest. My father was chief of police. He was from East Boston, former street thug, and married a country girl, and off to Illinois they were. So for me, growing up in the 60s and 70s, it was really like just fighting to understand gayness at that time. But as we've been doing this project, or one of the inceptions of it was when a younger queer man asked me, Peter, you lived through the AIDS crisis. What was it like? I've only read about it in history books. And I get choked up when I just even say that sentence, because it was like a turning point for me to realize, and I think for many of us who've lived so long with the word AIDS or the word gay versus straight in that kind of binary kind of way. And I'm just curious, because you have such a unique perspective of like a slice of humanity, that comes through your church with both straight identified and queer identified people. And that has that shifted for the straight community, that do they understand the nuance of queerness versus gay? Or
I always say that my straight people are the least homophobic people I know. And you'll understand that when you think, like, why would a straight person walk into a congregation being served by a lesbian? And, that's right there, pretty courageous.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting is they also are a lot better at sort of getting with the program than I am. So if someone comes in and says, my pronouns are they, they're just on it right away. I mean, I have never felt so vanilla. There was just that moment when lesbian was just like so passe and so sort of nothing. Like, I might as well be straight, right?
Right.
It's unbelievable. And once I was married, it was really all over. So when I used to feel like cool, I don't feel cool anymore.
Right. Yeah, I know. No, like, it used to be cool to have a gay friend, and now, like, nobody wants to be my friend.
Exactly.
I remember that kind of in college a little bit, the grad school, and in your 20s and all that, and it was and maybe this is kind of the problem with America, that we all want the new dress or the shiny car, or that queer friend who's going to help you pick out the shiny car.
Yeah.
New wardrobe.
Right.
I had some great times right as the pandemic was kicking up. As Joan mentioned, we did one session. I came to church one day, and I was in the community meeting room afterwards to talk with a table of folks. And I was so I don't know what I expected. It's like it's my Roman Catholic upbringing or whatever, and I expected people to be very sitting with their hands folded in their laps or whatever. And the community room was a buzz. It was very exciting, and I had to my right this. At first, the way the table just kind of filled out, there were some men of my age, 38. No, some men a little older on my edge of the table, to my right, and then there were some younger femme-identified women to my left, and the conversations were just, as you say, like very, I won't say heteronormative, because that's not quite, because they're definitely queer people, but it was about families accepting them. It was about the acceptance, the non-acceptance, the working through that journey with them. And I just found that kind of the normalcy of everybody's journey is sometimes rough and sometimes not. I just thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Among
Yeah.
folks like that.
I find it amazing too. I actually just did my first wedding of is a straight couple. They're completely lovely. We did all the planning, and somehow it just never came up that both of them, he has two moms and she has two dads. And so they all came through the door, and it was just sort of like, I love that you didn't find this worthy of mentioning to me. It just is now.
Right.
And I am deeply grateful. I mean, they're standing on our shoulders, and that's just where I want them to be. I'm really, really happy about it. Peter, you mentioned having lived through the AIDS crisis, and I think in so many ways, especially with this pandemic, all the ways that we can compare what we lived through and what this generation has lived through. I just feel like so much of my work now is to help educate kids about what happened. I live at Concord Academy. My wife teaches there, and we're house parents for 30 kids. At some point, Kim said the AIDS quilt, and then she realized no one was with her anymore, and they didn't know what that was.
Right.
So of everything I think we can be doing, it's, calling to memory everyone we lost, and, a whole generation of artists is gone, right? And keeping that up. And that's important work, I think, for all of us to do.
It was, you've kind of gotten right to my next question, because some of because of the pandemic, we had planned this project beforehand. We were supposed to be meeting live. The pandemic hits this one, and then of course there's this thing called Zoom, where you can break out into little rooms, which we're going to do in a second, folks. And it was just so amazing because since the AIDS pandemic had been kind of one of the threads of the beginning of these conversations, and the same thing, Kim, it's in these conversations, it's been kind of amazing to see people remember, like become aware again of the memory of like my father with World War II, who never talked about it until he was, closer to death, and then the memory started coming, what we sublimate. But you're so right. I feel like there's a generosity in telling these stories to people who came afterwards. Of course, there's that stereotype of, you guys we walked 16 miles to war in the snow with bare feet. It's not that kind of dialogue, but that we've been seeing at all. It's a very generous kind of dialogue. Well, and even when someone missteps, like someone will use the wrong pronoun in the conversation, or a wrong pronoun, they're learning, and they're just gently corrected to the pronoun of choice of the individual, or vice versa. Some younger person who hasn't experienced AIDS, it will say something that comes off as insensitive, and I've just been really touched by, like, if we hold these conversations in the light that they're meant, then we can get through anything. And I wonder if how you feel about that, but then also, we've got a lot of racial turmoil in our lives right now. Is it holding the basket, as we repair some of this? How are we going to make art again together? And I mean, how we do make life happen? How do we make art happen? Those kinds of things come to mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I've really been thinking, we, like, coming out of this pandemic, just like coming out of the last one, we have to say, what did we lose? And what did we find? And I think those have to be our guiding questions now. I think we were traumatized in the last pandemic. I think that trauma is much more systemic now, but I'm finding that sort of generated a kind of tenderness, which I'm really, really appreciating. And also a kind of forgiveness, as you said, Peter, in those conversations. People are a little kinder right now, and it would be nice to capitalize on it.
Yes, and remember,
right?
Right?
Yeah. But I think, I have quite a lot to say about resilience, because we all live to tell the story. And we can talk about how we did that. Obviously, my jam is living in spiritual community and helping to build community. Your jam is art and building community through art. I just think all of us stretching and looking for the intersections is super, super important. And, also for us, at the same time as queer people, to step back and to know this is a moment for Black Lives Matter, for the movement for Black lives. The work is going on in our community. That doesn't change. But all of us who are not people of color need to stand back now and figure out how can we best support that movement. So it's their turn, right? And hopefully we have something to offer that.
It's my last thought, because I know you have to leave us in a moment or two, but and maybe you just answered that too. You're always a step ahead of me, girl. I just love it. And this idea of, why did you say yes? We've known each other, from a distance through friends for years, and I still want to have a long-term art relationship with you,
Yes.
This project and beyond.
Absolutely.
I keep seeing flying puppets that dance in the rafters. I think we talked about that one time.
Yep.
But I was going to ask you, why yes to this project right now, for you and the church.
Oh my God, Peter, because it's brilliant and it's so important and so timely, and because you're awesome. You're a rock star. Like, we're so honored to have you.
Oh, thank you.
It's awesome. It's awesome. And I really want to say, yay, Bill Barnett's giving you the hands, the jazz hands. I have to say, I just want to give a shout for Agora, whom you mentioned. So Agora is this, like, just kick-ass Latinx community center event production. They just landed 5 events for the Celebrity Series at Arlington Street. Like, they're just killing it. They're brilliant. For me, it's thrilling to have, all this Spanish in the church and Latin music. It's everything from, like, oh, it's, you know, soccer in Peru today, so we're going to bring in a lot of Peruvian food and watch soccer on a big screen, to like awesome artists like Peter, or like performance artists, you know, coming in. It's just all the time art, art, art. And it's in many ways the thing I've missed almost the most this past year, is like the building had started to really rock. There was art happening all the time. And that's my dream, right? So
well, thank you. And thank you for your kind words. I feel like we're blessed too, because Elsa and her crew with, and I'm saying this term wrong, Agora.
Agora. Yeah, you got it. Like you can say Agora and they'll love it.
That's right. My niece is her first language is Spanish, and she's going to kick me after she sees this, because I the language down right. But we feel, you know, we're so blessed to have you, and I think what's good about, I mean, we can make art in a silo, and of course you can preach in a silo. But what the heck, you know, after a while I get tired of my own voice, and the art doesn't grow unless there are voices. It's an iterative process, and so that's been really, really great, and we're just so grateful to all that.
It's exciting. Thank you.
I know you have to take off.
I do. I just really want to welcome everybody. We are on Zoom on Sunday mornings right now, and it is kind of extraordinary what's happening. So come around sometime. You can go to ascboston.org and check it out.
Good. Thank you so much for taking time and chatting with us tonight, and for having us in the church. And we'll see you on June 19th and 20th.
I can't wait. It's so great.
Cabaret.
Thank you, my friends. All right. Have a beautiful evening. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Thanks. Yeah, let's give her a round of applause, or jazz hands like Bill was doing. That's really good. Wonderful. I feel like I have my little own talk show right now. This is really strange for a dance person, because we're supposed to be quiet and move around in the dark corners and be postmodern and all that. But she's just great, and I'm so grateful. Thank you for sticking with us. I realized as we were talking that I was trying to give you a little bit of a background to what Stones to Rainbows is, and but I was so concerned that I'd lose Kim, that I wanted to make sure that we got our conversation. And I'm going to put something into the chat here, just a link that if you want to take a look at now or later, that gives you a little bit more background to Stones to Rainbows, Gay to Queer Lives. I'll just back up and by saying that truly the inspiration for this project came in a rehearsal for another project, maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. And it was unique in the sense that we had been commissioned by the estate of Rudy Kickel, whom I'm sure some of you know on the call, who was the arts editor at Bay Windows, and a really beautiful poet. And it was lovely because we were asked to make a dance in his honor, and it was during the process of making that dance, because Rudy's a little older than me, and it just got us. We were in the room making a dance for someone who died in their 70s, I believe, and our youngest was 23 years old, and conversation led to what I mentioned earlier. But that also then got onto the conversations of, you know, my ignorance about what's been happening, or what was happening for a while now, about the new terminology that you know, non-binary and all the different pronoun series and things like that. And so it brought us to a really fruitful conversation within the company, and then we started testing out this idea with different groups, you know, of folks, like you would test a new logo. You shop it around a little bit and then get people's reactions. So what's been really great is that the initial support from New England Foundation for the Arts felt like, oh, this is something, because we also wanted to make sure that this was not a bunch of white gay men my age. So, and because that wouldn't, it wasn't the purpose of the project. It was this intergenerational thing. It was interracial. It was intersectional. It is intersectional. All those things. And the goal was to maybe not even make a dance, but have through a series of conversations that were hand chosen couplings to record these both on video and audio, and then somehow have them projected onto an installation. The original installation idea was a series of doors that would be a very neutral color, portals, and kind of like our coming out, metaphor for our coming out. And that evolved to a series of what we were calling queer henge, that it was a circular installation of doors that people could wander through and around. That has now developed, because of COVID, to a more central location of a central piece of art that will have video and sound and light emanating from it. And the circular aspect is still there, but surrounding this installation will be a series of listening chairs, and the chairs are actually made from broken up police barricades, and there'll be some collection of stones, rocks, and what not that attach that hold down the bases of the chairs, and you can sit and you can listen with a embedded speaker to some of the stories that have happened, and you'll see those stories, the text from those stories, the images of the people speaking them. There'll be other images from the History Project archives. They've been so kind to let us go in there. And so we're really excited to bring up a portion of that. We're going to do about one quarter of the circle of chairs and try it out at Arlington Street Church, June 19th and 20th, as I mentioned. So that's the project. And and please, if there's something hazy on that, you want to know more specifically, you can type it into the chat, and we'll figure that out in a little bit. But now I've got my drink, and I think you have yours. And this glass, I didn't know it did this, but it turns colors when the water hits it, so it does have kind of a rainbow thing. And I'm not promoting Starbucks. I've given up during. See, it's not happening. But that brings us to, the drink brings us to what we've been doing in our 1.5 year long little cocktail parties to produce some of these conversations. We thought we'd give you a taste of this, and to do a little breakout room with you. And of course, you are certainly welcome to participate to the level that you want or don't want to. If you don't want to participate, and just put a smile on your face or darken your screen. But we hope you'll have a little chat with folks. And I'm curious, some of the questions we've been asking to different folks, what intergenerational relationships are present in your life? I wanted to ask you about that. I realized I jumped the gun here a little bit, didn't I, Joan? We're going to give you an example of one of these conversations right now. I got so excited. So Joan is going to share for us a small portion of a conversation, and I think I saw one of our participants in the room here earlier, Bren. Thank you so much for letting us show this. It's a conversation with Bren and Sue Katz, and and the nature of their friendship will come through, I think, in the little clip that Joan is going to share with us just now.
Yep, and if all is going according to plan, this should work. Are you folks seeing? I can't see you to check if this is working now. Peter, can you see it?
I can see it, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to hit play.
Fond of it because of that. And then I think another milestone was actually another media moment when I first saw the film Gen Silent, which is a fantastic documentary about kind of the challenges facing queer seniors. And it actually takes place in Boston. It's filmed in Boston. And when I first saw it, first off, I was blown away because I had never really seen so many older LGBT folks anywhere before. And I was in my early 20s at the time. And I think that one of the things I had not been able to do in my coming out process was visualize what my future could look like. So much of the queer community is very youth-centric. And so it's very hard to see yourself as an older queer person. And, just based on homophobic violence and things like that, it's hard to imagine that you were going to even live that long, based on, the way things were and unfortunately still are in a lot of ways. So when I saw Gen Silent, I immediately knew that I wanted to get involved somehow in working with LGBT elders. So I found the Aging Project at Fenway Health and became a volunteer at the lunch sites and the cafes, which are basically monthly brunches for queer seniors to get together and kind of hang out and catch up and also share a meal together. And that's how I met Katz. That's how I met many friends I have now who are of a different generation than me. And I remember my very first time volunteering, I walked in, I met this older butch. She was probably in her early 70s. It wasn't Katz, it was a different person. I hadn't met Katz yet at that point, but I remember my mind being totally blown. Meeting her, it was kind of like seeing the ghost of Christmas Future. And I was just blown away that all the things that she had survived and that she was still just out and proud and just doing her thing. And we had a great conversation about what her life was coming out as a young lesbian versus mine, and it really opened my eyes to the importance of these conversations between generations. There's just so much to learn from different experiences, and I think that it's shaped a lot of how I view queer community and the importance of building that. So yeah, I'm gonna let Katz talk now.
Yeah, so I should say that we at these meals, and Massachusetts has more of them than any place in the world, literally. How many are there now? I mean, I can't remember the number because of pandemic, but yeah, Bren was the most popular of the young people that would come and help at these meals, and everybody wanted to be her friend, but I got to be her friend. So I just want to point that out. So when I saw this, make bullet points about your life, I had to laugh because I knew everybody was going to be 35, and they could make 10 bullet points, and I'm 72, and I'd have to make 50 bullet points because I have lived a long time. So I didn't do it, but anyway, I'm writing this memoir, so I'll have developed these bullet points. But
There we go. We have another.
That's as far as the notes told me to go. Although I'm sure we could sit here and listen to Sue.
And all the more
the whole interview.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure many people on the call know Sue Katz and Never a Dull Moment, and so there's more to that story throughout all that. This was, as I mentioned before, a slice of several conversations. There were about 88 people, maybe about 40 some couples who met, and the age range was I think as young as 17, 18, and as old as people who would admit to, probably in their late 70s, might have been one 80-year-old, but a cross section of folks from all sectionalities that we're living right now. It was pretty impressive, and some involvement from people farther away around the country, Los Angeles, and one participant from London, as I remember. On top of all this, there was some really great, during the pandemic, we realized Instagram. Oh, there's this thing called Instagram. Duh, I'm so old. And we collected probably about 50 or so Just a Queer Minute, where you can still do this. You can go to, we'll put our social media handles on the chat there in a minute, but you can go and you can offer a video, a selfie video, basically, of just talking about any aspect of your queer life. So you give us a queer minute, and you can end up in the installation as well. Oh, thank you so much, John. So now we get to the place where you can stop having to listen to me a little bit and maybe talk with each other. And maybe the conversation between Brennan, Sue, made you think about intergenerational relationships. I realized after we put the news out, maybe people are thinking we're talking about love relationships, which is fine to talk about. But I do think that there's some wealth and depth in intergenerational and or relationships, which I witnessed during the AIDS crisis, having more lesbian friends than ever because of the way the lesbian community, stepped up and helped us throughout a lot of the gay men who are dying. So intersectional, intergenerational, we're going to put you into some rooms. And you'll have a little, maybe 15 minutes, maybe we should do like 12 minutes, 15. We'll see how you're doing. And because we want to come back and just hear some highlights, and then we'll talk a little bit more when you come back.
Resume recording. Peter. There you
we
are.
go. Yes, I've unmuted. Hi, everybody. Well, that was fun. I hope it was fun for you. Thumbs up, thumbs down, neutral, whatever, right? David Huff, I see, maybe it was okay.
I wish it were a half an hour longer.
I know. Well, it's so funny. We were talking about that phenomenon that always leave them wanting more, right? Because we've done these about 8, 9 of them maybe over the last year, and it's so interesting. It's sometimes a little slow going to begin with, but it's been really exciting to just see people smile differently when they come back, like I see some of you now doing, and some of you have gone to back to screens and stuff, and that's all good. I hope for those of you who were on mute and that was an okay experience for you, it's fine with me. I think people should, I never want to push people into religion or art because it's sometimes a really personal thing, right? And so thank you for doing that. I wondered if we have a few minutes here, and a lot of you, if there were truly like a phrase to describe what you just went through, a highlight of it, and we're going to kind of keep it to one sentence or a phrase of things, something you were surprised that came up, and then and that will give us all the more reason to reach out to you again and ask you maybe to do just a queer minute for us or something like that. But no strings, as they say. My whole life, my relationships, no strings. Okay, that's too much. You don't want to know that. So if any, I will let you just kind of unmute yourself and just offer what you want to offer, or write it in the chat too.
Hi, well, this is Bill. We've talked a lot about intergenerational LGBTQ conversations and how different things are for those of us on the gray end of the spectrum and kids in high school or just out of college. And we want to encourage conversations between the generations. And I mentioned that the Cambridge LGBTQ+ Commission is in the very early stages of figuring out if we can have an LGBTQ+ community center. And if that happens, that would certainly be part of that. So if anyone is interested and wants to learn more about that, get in touch with me.
That's great. Thanks, Bill. Thanks so much. Anybody else? Go ahead, Jean.
So the 2 folks in my group, one of them brought up the whole thing about lesbian bars disappearing in the early 2003s and how much younger folks especially could really use that. as a place to connect, and the older folks too. And also that, as Bren was saying, that there was a program to call isolated seniors through the Fenway, and how that was a good idea too, during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my 2 cents.
That's great. Thank you. I think that's more like 4 cents, Jean. That was really good. Thank you. Well, we got a good value out of that. Kathleen, can I nominate you? Would you mind? I thought that we had a little conversation in our group, Dean and Kathleen, about what was it, the AIDS quilt inspiring a new pandemic quilt. And then there was something about your students staying the same age.
Yeah, we talked about, I'll let Dean talk about the COVID quilt, but we talked about the ways I teach at a university and how difficult it can be sometimes to know what students know and what they don't know. So Peter had mentioned earlier that some young people now have never heard of the AIDS quilt or have only heard of it as a thing that they had no association with. And I was telling him how I've taught a queer studies class for 10 years. And at some point, students stopped knowing what the AIDS quilt was, but I didn't realize it for a while. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I hadn't really been talking about it that much because I thought they knew. And I was like, oh no, we need a whole class session where we talk about this, because they didn't, some of them had never even heard of it.
Yeah, amazing. And I think,
could I mention something, a project that's happening that people might be interested in? My name is Susan. So I'm involved with a group of elders who are been working on a virtual senior center. And one of our programs that are coming up is a Pride Wellness series with Friendship Works. And why I bring that up here, that's exactly an intergenerational programming that will be happening. Friendship Works hooks up young folks with older folks, and they have a LGBT queer strand. So younger queers can help hang out with older queers, and they do the connection. So it's a fabulous model, I think.
So great. That's great. And maybe if you have information, you can put it into the chat so we can find you.
I will put the flyer in the chat.
God bless America that we can do this. This is so great. Well, we're getting along to our hour here. It's so nice to meet you. And there's a few folks involved with the project. I just want to give a shout out to Kim Setzo from New England Foundation for the Arts, who came on the call. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for believing in the project. And
really glad to be here.
Thank you. And Dean and Anne, I don't know if there's anybody else from Public Displays of Motion. I didn't say at the top of the hour, but I will now, that my day job is I run the dance complex in Central Square. So Bill, I hope we can keep collaborating with you in Cambridge as well. And June 19th and 20th at Arlington Street Church, we'll do our first version of this Stones to Rainbows, Gay to Queer Lives. And then October, we are set to be in Somerville at the Armory, although there's some changes happening at the Armory for those of you who know Somerville art scene. And then a year from now, June of 2022, the full exhibit will be at the Central Square Theater in a new configuration of the theater then, and supported by, throughout all the time, the queer cabarets. Some of the artists who were inside the Duet Dialogues that we experienced, and in Just a Queer Minute, we reached out to a heavy population of queer artists. So they will appear hopefully in some of the queer cabarets that will take place. The installation becomes a backdrop for the cabaret, and it will be lit up, and videos will pop in and out, and a live performer will appear. So we're gonna try that at Arlington Street Church, so you can follow the project hopefully for all that time. And we just look forward to everything. Thank you so much. I know like to be on one more Zoom room is like God bless America. That's one hard thing to ask at this point, but it's so good to see your faces and see some familiar faces I haven't seen in maybe 20 years as well. And thank you to Joan and the History Project for being a partner with us on all this in the beginning. And our hearts go out to our other partners who aren't here tonight, Agara and Arlington Street Church. We got them all. They're all here. We talked about them all. All right. Joan, any final last words?
I just want to say thank you for coming into our Zoom this evening. And for everyone here, thank you for your interest in the History Project and in this project in particular. I put some more links in the chat, both to public displays of motions, email list. Kristen, who couldn't be here, reminded me or asked me to please do that. And links back to the History Project. Like I said, we have an event coming up on June 3rd. We're going to try to sneak in before you get to bogged down with Pride Month events with a panel on LGBTQ publications in the gay liberation era. And if you'd like to learn more about us, again, please visit us at historyproject.org. During the pandemic, we've been very online, and I hope we'll continue some level of online programming in the future, because it's been really lovely, like Peter said, to see everyone's faces and homes and dogs and wine glasses and everything else. So yeah, I think that's all for me. Peter, any final words before we shut down?
I feel instantly comfortable with you all. I put my email in the chat for those folks to be in touch, and I cannot wait. We're going to have this dialogue. It's going to continue, and it's important that young folks especially have an ancestry where we're all tied together. So that's one of the highlights I got from the conversations tonight. So thank you for being part of that, and we hope to continue with you in the future. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Have a good night, everyone.
Jazz hands.